Well, hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another broadcast of Pain in the Pews, Mental Health and Ministry. I am Chelselia Cookie Payne. I am the founder of Pain and Glory Incorporated. We are a nonprofit organization located right here in the metropolitan Atlanta area. One of the three platforms that we rest upon happens to be Pain and Pews Mental Health and Ministry, where our effort is to bridge the gap between the mental health and faith communities, realizing that you can indeed have faith and have a therapist at the same time. You can indeed be a believer and have mental health challenges and get help for it. There's help and there's hope. And tonight, I'm elated to bring to you a great conversation, a great opportunity for us to have a conversation that is very important. And this actually was a panel discussion that was hosted by the Mental Wealth Alliance. And the Mental Wealth Alliance is an organization that was founded by Charlemagne the God. And if you're not familiar with him, Charlemagne the God is a radio personality and author. He's an activist. He's an advocate. And he's one that you probably have seen his name quite a lot. And he assembled a panel of some amazing men because we're going to be talking about men's mental health. And it's called Peace King, a conversation on Black men's mental health. Listen, hit that share button, grab a family member, bring them together. Let's talk about this because we're going to enjoy this conversation, this engaging conversation that entails dealing with and talking about openly and honestly about our Black men's mental health. So I'm going to put some things in place so that I can get out of the way and so that you guys can get the best out of this content and this experience, because I want you to get all the nuggets, get everything that you're supposed to get out of it. So I am going to get out of the way so that you all can enjoy Peace King, a conversation on Black men's health. Enjoy this.
Welcome.
And I'm getting out of the way.
I want to give you a second to get in here. It is so nice to have you here. You can see that I am representing the Mental Wealth Alliance, founded by our own beloved Charlemagne the God. You all know him, you all love him, and this is his effort to really center and name and cultivate and build the mental health and emotional well-being of Black people. He's always saying invest in your mental wealth. And today we're going to have a conversation about our Black men, our kings. And we're calling this Peace King, a conversation about Black mental health among the brothers. And so you can see right here that Char is front and center with the Mental Wealth Alliance, a beautiful logo, beautiful branding that we have. Shout out to the branding team for putting this all together. And the Mental Wealth Alliance, you can find online. Obviously, if you're here, you already know that, mentalwealthalliance.org. And we're really about a couple of pillars: train, treat, and teach. So within each of those, it's all focused on moving us closer to having millions. That's Char's vision, is millions of Black people having access to culturally competent, right? That's real key, culturally competent mental health care. So the organization was founded, created, envisioned, as one of my colleagues says, visioneered, shout out to Ann, by Charlemagne in collaboration with a couple people. So Debbie Brown, Marvette Brito, and Tim Shriver are all people who came together to support him in putting this organization together. And you can learn more at mentalwealthalliance.org. And so one of the things that we want to do as we start is to set our intention. I'm a big believer in setting intentions. And so my intention that I'm going to set for this next hour that you're going to be with us, hour and 12 minutes or so, is that we really understand and recognize how important mental health as a concept is, particularly in this month of July, where we celebrate, which is part of the reason why we're here, the mental health of people of color specifically. Now, today we're really primarily talking about Black folks' mental health. We talk about the whole diaspora right? We got African immigrant folks, right? And their descendants. We got those of us who are like me, the descendants of people who were stolen and brought here enslaved. Black folks include Black Latinx folks. I'm particularly mindful of that given what's going on in the world right now. I follow Laz Alonso and a couple other folks, my Howard University brethren and sistren. And so we know that the diaspora is big and it's beautiful and it's wonderful. So we want to recognize all those folks who comprise who we call Black, under that label of Black. And we're going to talk about their mental health today with a focus on our brothers. So without further ado, what I want to do is bring on and introduce our panelists. So if you indulge me quickly, I'm going to go through my production team in the back is going to help me out here. But we're going to start with the man of the hour. I'm going to describe him, give you a little teeny bio for anybody who's living under a rock and doesn't know who this gentleman is, Charlemagne the God. So Charlemagne the God, Leonard McKelvey, is a media mogul, which you know, a Radio Hall of Famer recently with his work on The Breakfast Club, a best-selling author, 2 books that I know of, he's probably got more in him, a cultural architect, and the host of a wildly popular show, The Breakfast Club. His Mental Wealth Alliance, the Mental Wealth Alliance is his vision, as I've shared, and it is wonderful to have him be here. The Black Effect is also, you see he's got his hat on, the Black Effect is also an organization that he created to support and push out information around Black folks, all things related to Black folks, and to really uplift us as Black people. So can you give us a wave, Mr. Charlemagne the God? And welcome. Thank you, sir. All right. Next, I want to bring on Ryan Mundy. Mr. Ryan Mundy is a new friend of mine. He is wonderful. He's a great person who has founded this beautiful platform called Alchemy Health. I support Alchemy Health. I'm a person who partakes of what they have to offer. Mr. Mundy is the founder and CEO of Alchemy Health. Alchemy Health is a mindful Black digital health company that champions mental health by offering therapy modules. I'm into something they have called Waves, which is like this really cool, culturally competent, culturally relevant music. He knows because I've told him this multiple times. And Ryan has also founded other entities or organizations, and he was managing director of TechLet Ventures. He played 8 years in the NFL and is a Super Bowl champion. So welcome. Can you give folks a wave, Mr. Mundy? All right. Thank you, sir. Next, we're going to bring on Doug Reed, who joins us from our partner in this collaborative that we put together that's co-sponsoring this event, right? This is something that's also a part of Char's vision. Doug Reed joins us from Black Men Heal. He is a military veteran. Shouts out to you, sir. My father is also a military veteran and a dedicated social justice advocate. He's lectured at Columbia. All right. Shouts out to New York on correctional systems reform. And really importantly, Doug serves as a mentor to fellow soldiers, a sports coach to local young adults, and he has proven absolutely to be an invaluable resource to his church, to his community, and to the broader community at large through all the work that he does in programming with Black Men Heal. Can you give us a wave, Doug? Welcome, sir. Welcome. All right. We also have Jay Barnett, a former professional football player as well, turned a marriage and family therapist. So for anybody who's in the field, MFT, that's what Mr. Barnett is. He's an author. He's a motivational speaker. He got a whole bunch of folks following him on Instagram and probably other social media platforms. And he has transitioned and translated the lessons and strategies that he learned during his playing time into life lessons for all of us. He created a personal and social development program called the King Program, which is perfect for what we're talking about today, for young men at Texas Southern University. And he also has a nonprofit focused on fostering youth excellence. Welcome, Mr. Barnett. He gives folks a wave. He's here too. All right. And then finally, we have my new friend, Mr. Anthony Hamilton. You all know Mr. Hamilton as a Grammy Award-winning multi-platinum singer, songwriter, producer, actor, I did not know that, and author. He founded the TASTE, T-A-S-T-E Foundation to address widespread issues facing Black folks in his home state of North Carolina. North Carolina, I used to live in North Carolina before we moved to the DC area. And man, what else can I say? So the Taste Foundation focuses on hunger, homelessness, health, obviously mental health. That's why we're here today. Foster care, which is really important, and education. He's passionate about increasing access and resources, just like Shar is for Black folks in all sections of life. And so I want to welcome and do my little round of applause, all these gentlemen, and thank them so much for being here. Now, let me say real quickly, clearly we doing like one of these things is not like the others, right? And so we felt like it was important to go ahead and have a woman's voice here because we are women who love, care for, support, and really value the Black men in our lives. And so it's really important for us to make sure that we're front and center. I have a son, I have a spouse, I have an aging father. And so, you know, many of us love and care for Black men. So we want to make sure that we're here too to bring that voice so we can learn some things and translate some things into our knowledge to help us with the Black men that we know, love, and care about. So with all of that said, that's the most you're going to hear me talk today, I promise. I promise that's the most. We're going to dive in. And what I would like to do is have, starting with Charlemagne, who just disappeared.
Oh, no, I'm right here.
Okay. Okay.
I'm right here.
All right. I want to ask each of the men if you would please answer the question, what does Black mental health mean for you?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you, Dr. Alfie, you know, for not just being our fearless leader with the Mental Wealth Alliance, but leading this conversation. I want to, you know, thank Ryan and Doug and Jay and Anthony for being a part of this. And, you know, mental health to me is those things that you don't see, but it's those things that you feel. Like, I think mental and emotional health is, you know, like, it's like physical health, but you just don't necessarily see it. And you know, when we talk about being healthy, we always talk about it from a physical aspect. Like, you can go to the gym and, you know, you can work out, or, you know, you can diet. But I think about it the same way in regards to my mental and emotional health. You know, I'm very cognizant of, you know, what I allow into my space, what I allow into my mind. You know, going to therapy the past, you know, 4 or 5 years, and just, you know, really understanding the language of the anxiety that I may be feeling, or the PTSD that I may be feeling, or the bouts of depression. And, you know, once you get that language, you know, right now I'm in that state of actually dealing with the trauma. You know, getting to that place of healing that I hope, you know, everybody gets the opportunity to get to at some point. So for me, you know, mental health is just it's literally just like physical health. It's that health you can't necessarily see, but you feel that there are a lot of resources out there, you know, to keep us mentally fit.
Thank you so much for that. Trying to keep myself on mute so I don't interject. And I'm just so grateful for that, what you shared about it, and also being so open and transparent. So with that, let me just dive on and go to Ryan. Ryan, can you tell us a little bit about what does mental health mean to you?
Good afternoon, everybody. Pleasure to be with you all. What does mental health mean to me? I break it down into, I guess, 3 core pillars. One being around like self-awareness, really having a strong understanding of who and what an individual is and what you are. That was something that was very important and played a major role in my mental health journey because I played football since the age of 7 up until 31. That's a long time to do anything. And at 31 years old, I really had to figure out who I was when I wasn't tackling somebody for the first time. It was a big challenge, and really having the strength and the ability to dive deep, look myself in the mirror and find out and develop that self-awareness and really get that strong sense of self was really important for me. Next bucket would be around community. We are who we surround ourselves with, and thinking about, like, you know, there's a lot of different sayings around, like, you know, you're the sum of the people that you hang around, etc. But I really do believe that the people that you surround yourself with, the inputs that you have, what you consume on a daily basis shapes and plays a significant role in your mental health. And then lastly, you know, thinking about like growth. You know, I'm a big proponent of trying to unlock the next and best and highest version of myself. But in order to do that, I need to be right up here. I could lift all the weights that I want, I could run forever, etc. But if I'm not right mentally, then it's tough sledding. And that's like our core principle at Alchemy is that, a healthy life starts with a healthy mind. So I would break mental health down into those 3 buckets.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for that. So we're going to go on to you, Doug. Can you tell us what Black mental health means to you, sir?
Well, first, just to give honor to God and just to be here. Thank you, Charlamagne, Dr. Alfie, and the honored guests. So I really appreciate being here. I think mental health is actually broken down into 2 parts. And I say this because one is, I'll say what it's not. It's not mental illness, but it is a 2-part where when we think about Black mental health, we think Black. And I think with Black, we think about how we are affected with how we feel, our emotions, and everything that we encounter as far as the disparities, the injustice of the world, and everything that goes along with it. And of course, how we feel, how we think, how we feel, and how to respond. It's like, I think about it like a car, when we drive in a car and the engine light comes on. Knowing we're supposed to get the engine light checked, knowing we're supposed to go get it. So from a mental aspect of that, I think the light is on and we got to go. To go get it checked, to go see a therapist, to go see somebody that's going to deal with our mental to kind of help us out. So with that 2-part, I think it's how it affects us as far as us being Black, and of course, how we think, how we feel, and how we respond.
Beautiful, beautiful. I love that, like really breaking it down for us and giving those distinctions. And I really am appreciative of that because we do want to think about it as a continuum, right? It's not either or, right? We're all somewhere on that continuum. So I would also want to bring in someone who's probably going to give us a slightly different perspective because you approach this from the other side of the chair, just like Doug does, and that's Jay Barnett. Can you tell us what does Black mental health mean to you?
So when you're looking at Black mental health, of course, you want to break it down from the perspective of us being Black. But when you think about mental health, I always like to break it down into 3 parts or 3 elements, right? You have your mental, you have your emotional, and then you have your physical. And all of those elements have been impacted and been affected when it comes to us, just slavery. You think about everything that we've had to endure, as Blacks. And so when you look at Black mental health, each element has been impacted to even how we see ourselves associated through the traumas that we've experienced through slavery. It's impacted how we perceive things. It's affected our health. When you look at, we're usually leading in most of the health issues when it comes to high blood pressures, when it comes to high cholesterol, when it comes to any of these different things. And so Black mental health for me is beyond, as Doug said, beyond, it's not just a mental illness, it's also associated with our quality of life. And for me, when you think about quality of life, your quality of life is going to be determined by your mental health. And if your mental health is not in a stable state, this eventually causes a mental illness. And so Black mental health is centered around our mental, it's centered around our physical, and also our emotional well-being. Because you look at a lot of emotional states that we're in, a lot of has been attached to our history and our past. And so that's what Black mental health means to me.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. So I want to ask, perfect. So Mr. Hamilton, Anthony, I want to go to you. Can you tell us what Black mental health means to you? I know it's a part of the organization that with TASTE that you work with. So tell us a little bit about what Black mental health means to you.
Can't hear you, brother.
I'm still not hearing you. We still don't hear you. So
is he muted? I think he's muted.
I don't see it. I don't think so. So can we keep working on it? Because we definitely want to get Anthony in here. Oh, he said you're muted. Can you unmute yourself? Oh, he's not muted. I'm sorry. So he's not muted. All right. So we're going to keep working on it because we definitely want to get you in here. Beautiful. And so what I want to ask is, this question just came to me. For all of you, everybody I'm looking at right now is an African-American man. And I'm really mindful of, in this moment, there's something unique about us being in this moment in time, right? Given the last year, given what's been happening recently, I'm really curious for all of you, to the extent that you feel comfortable. And if you don't feel comfortable talking about yourself, the men in your circle that you're close to, how have you all been doing lately as it relates to your mental health? And Char, I'm gonna go to you first. Just do you feel comfortable telling us a little bit about how have you been doing?
Man, I always tell people I'm somewhere between O and K. You know, it's ups and downs. You know, especially last year dealing with COVID. I had a couple of really good friends, who committed suicide last year, and it's just I'm always somewhere between O and K. That's why even when I ask people how are they, like I really want an honest answer, and we've been getting a lot of those honest answers, especially after the pandemic. I tell people now, don't ask somebody how they're doing if you really, really, truly, honestly don't want to know. And every day is different. You know what I mean? That's why I like the good brother Jay. Jay will hit me up sometime and just ask me, how am I? And I really appreciate that. It's good just to get that positive energy. Sometimes I just reach out to folks and send them positive energy, love, and light. Just tell them I'm sending them healing energy, because I can't sit here and act like I'm not impacted by things that I'm seeing, going on in the world today. And I mean, no matter what may be going on in your life, one moment I can literally be smiling and be like, yo, I'm happy, I'm blessed. My wife is great, my kids are great. Things professionally are going well. But then it's like, man, it's a lot of pain in the world. It's a lot of hurt in the world. It's a lot of people grieving in the world right now. A lot of people are, not in the same financial space I may be in. So all of that stuff, impacts you in different ways. It makes you feel like you're not doing enough. You can be dealing with imposter syndrome at different times because you're like, okay, why am I in this position? So, it gives you like that survivor's remorse, so to speak. So, yeah, to answer your question, I'm somewhere between O and K.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, it's not beautiful in the sense that that's a hard space to be in, but it's beautiful in the sense that you open yourself up and that you're so vocal about it. And I feel like that's so important. And I'm looking at faces, and two faces are like jumping out at me, Ryan and Jay. Do you all care to answer that question? How have you been doing lately as Black men?
Yeah, I'll take. I think Charlamagne touched on it a bit. And that was a great description and how he described it being between O and K, because it's a journey. It's a journey. You think about what had to happen, and I know personally, every time I think about the George Floyd situation, you almost feel like he was a sacrificial lamb. And here's what I mean by that. I mean that because without George Floyd's passing, you don't have the spaces that we have now when it comes to mental health. And all of a sudden, you had all of this trauma, and even you take it back to Kobe, you take it back to Nipsey, you take it back to Chadwick. And so we've had to endure so much trauma, so much pain, and grief is something that doesn't go away overnight. There's some things. I lost a friend back in March, to a car accident, and grief something that hits you, here and there, and it's a process. And so I think being able to understand that you can't rush the process. And even as a therapist, I walked away from private practice back in May because I saw in between 500 to 700 clients in a year and a half, because, every time that I was doing something nationally, it brought more people to me. And so, and I'm thinking about, man, I'm in this space and there's not a lot of Black brothers that are therapists. And then I'm having to look for guys in this space to refer them to clients. Everybody's overworked. And then we're trying to process our own stuff in our own personal life. And so it's been a challenge. And it's been a challenge because you don't know what's in the process until you're in it. And that's the difficult about it. You don't know that there's going to be days where a breakdown is going to come unexpectedly. You don't know that there's going to be days where you may be hit with a panic attack. And it doesn't mean that something is wrong within you. Sometimes it's the things that are going on around you that's the challenge. And a lot of times you got to look at a world. I mean, look at the state of our country. We're not in a good place. I told my therapist, because I see a therapist, and anybody that's watching, if you're a therapist, you should be seeing a therapist. And if you were seeing a therapist and they don't have a therapist, you might want to change your therapist. So anyway, and he said, Jay, how do you feel in this space? I said, imagine yourself screaming and there's tape over your mouth.
Ooh, ooh.
I said, that's what it feels like. That my mouth works, I have sound, but no one can hear it. And I said, that's what it's been like to be a Black man for the past 2 years.
Wow, that's so deep and powerful. And I'm gonna get to Ryan and Doug. I just want to surface something that you mentioned that I think is important for us to talk about from the perspective of the Mental Wealth Alliance. And part of what the Mental Wealth Alliance wants to do is ease some of that burden on people like you, sir, Mr. Barnett, is bring more professionals into the field who are men, right? We want more brothers to come do it but if they're not men and if they're not Black, who at least have the cultural competence, like real, genuine, deep cultural competence. And I have to say, cultural competence is not that you know every single thing there is to know about every single culture, every single background. That's not what it is. It's really a set of skills, knowledge, and awareness that you bring with you into those clinical encounters. And so that's part of what Mental Wealth Alliance wants to do, is to ease some of that burden on people like you so that you don't have to carry so much of that weight. So with that said, let me just pitch to Ryan and Doug. Do you all want to weigh in on this question a little bit?
Yeah, happy to weigh in. Two tough acts to follow, but I fall right in line. This has been an unprecedented time in human history, and in itself, that's really tough to digest. But then being a parent, I have 2 young kids at home, and homeschool was quite frankly a nightmare. That was traumatizing in itself, waking up day after day and having to answer that bell. The stock market was really volatile. You just have general concerns for your safety. And this is just talking about Corona. And then we look at what happened with George Floyd. And then I couldn't even watch that video. That was just like, I don't even know how to put that into words, but I've never watched, after I saw like a few seconds of it, I couldn't stomach it. And so, it all builds up to be like a really, really tough time and an interesting time for me personally. And I was doing all this while I'm trying to build my company, right? So I'm starting a company in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of a racial pandemic, out here talking to investors, hiring people, like the whole nine. And so I really aligned and resonated with Jay said about just having, my mouth works, but I'm not always able to articulate how I'm feeling. I don't always have the language. I don't always have the courage to ask for help, because again, coming from where I'm coming from, like, I'm Mr. Athlete, I should have all these things figured out, and I'm scared to be vulnerable sometimes. And so, it's been a constant challenge and a battle for me. I can say, however, like, one, I'm mindful of these things. And so now that I'm mindful, I try to be better about how I move forward with that. Even though it's still challenging, I still really try to be mindful and be more vocal about what I'm needing, how am I feeling, et cetera, because I can't expect, I can only manage my own expectations. And if those, if I have an ask, nobody can help me if I don't express that ask. And so I'm trying to be really mindful of that, because the reality is we can't do it alone, and we don't have to go through it alone. And so I'm really starting to lean into that as I continue to move forward.
Thank you so much. Doug, it sounds like there was a lot that I know you all do with Black Men Heal as part of the Mental Wealth Alliance's collaborative, but also in your own right. So did you want to weigh in on that question too?
Yeah, well, first I'll say, I'm doing okay. The thing about it now, like I take it like I'm on assignment. I'm fortunate enough to be, retired. And I even go back to the George Floyd incident. Like, I retired out of the Federal Bureau of Prisons. I work with a lot of different individuals, including white men who thought they were more powerful than Black men, especially when it comes to the power of oversight. So when I seen it, I'm like everybody else. I think I only watched it maybe once or twice, but I couldn't watch it because I seen so many of my former colleagues doing the same thing where they thought they had the right to do that. So now I take what I do now. I'm more, I'm not a therapist, but I'm an advocate for men to find their peace, to understand, even as Ryan said, to understand their vulnerability. Like what I do, I have no problem in showing emotion. I have no problems in anything that I do because I'm free. And I say that why I'm free, just like Jay had mentioned, like I'm free from a lot of different things. Free from the fact that I'm not containing When I say I'm not contained, like I was in the military for 20 years, I'm not contained there. I worked in a prison for 20 years. I'm not contained there. So now I operate with a certain freedom and a certain grace. So now I'm on assignment. That's why I respect what you guys are doing. And, you know, basically, Peter already know, I say, let's go. You know, let's do it, because it's about healing a man. Healed men. We heal a man, and we heal him first. We heal his family, we heal his community, and now we're going to heal the world. But we can only do it one king at a time. So I feel like I'm on assignment just to be free and be vulnerable to other men's deceit. You know, the military, I'm always about setting that example. So if I can just set the example of who I am, and it's going to bless somebody else, yo, let's do it.
That is beautiful. I love that freedom. I always say I'm liberated. I have this thing, but I'm liberated to choose. I'm liberated to work on my healing. I am liberated. So I love hearing you say that, and saying that healed men heal men. That is so important. So sticking with this theme of healing, Shar, I want to come back to you. And I wonder, can you talk a little bit about if there was a particular, like, just again, staying with this idea of healing, a particular moment of clarity that you had when you realized maybe it's time for me to go get some support from somebody else, and that could be a professional. Maybe you went and talked to a friend. Are you comfortable talking a little bit about that moment of clarity and then what you did?
Absolutely. I mean, for me, it actually came in a moment of peace. I was on vacation, and I was looking around at all my family and all my friends, and you know, I felt something that I hadn't felt in a long time, and it was just like peace. There was no anxiety. There was no worrying, no nothing. And I was just like, man, how can I feel like this all the time without vacationing all the time? Because, you know, I've been dealing with panic attacks my whole life, but the lifestyle I was living, you know, at the time, you know, especially growing up in Moss Corner, South Carolina, I just thought, you know, that paranoia came with the territory. Like if I'm in the streets, you know, selling crack, like I just expected that paranoia to come with the territory. So when I would have those, you know, panic attacks, anxiety attacks, I didn't even know what they were at the time. But in 2010 is when I first got clinically diagnosed, because I had just gotten fired, you know, for the fourth time from radio. And I was back at home living with my mom. I was like 31, 32 years old. And my daughter was like 1 or 2. And my now wife was back at home living with her parents. And I remember just having like a crazy panic attack. One of those panic attacks that I had to, you know, go to the hospital like I had done many times before in my life, go to the emergency room because I think I'm having a heart attack. And the doctor told me the same thing he always told me, like, yo, you got an athlete's heart. You know, your heart is healthy. But then he said something that I never heard before, and he was like, yo, do you suffer from anxiety? And I was like, anxiety, what is that? And he was like, it sounds like you had a panic attack. He was like, have you ever had one of those before? And I just thought about, you know, all the times in my life that I've had them, and I'm like, yeah, I've been having these forever. And then he was like, are you stressed out about anything? And I was like, hell yeah. You know what I mean? My mom's fired for the 4th time. I'm back at home living with my mom. I'm collecting unemployment checks. You know, I'm a 30-something-year-old grown man. I got a daughter. I didn't know what to do. And so in my mind, I was like, all I got to do is get back in position. Once I get back in position, everything will be fine, right? So the next gig I get was the Breakfast Club. But then 4 or 5 years later, when I've got success, I've got more money than I've ever had. You know, I got a New York Times best-selling book, all types of different things. Everything is great, but I'm still having those same panic attacks. I'm still having those, you know, bouts of depression. So when I had that moment of peace, I was just like, man, I want to go sit down and talk to somebody. My wife was just like, yo, just go see a therapist. And I had been talking to people, you know, who had been, you know, to therapy before, and I was kind of like, you know, just asking them because I was just trying to figure it out. Like, where should I go? Where should I start? Where should I begin? So I just found somebody to sit down and talk to, and that just got me on the road to healing because it helped me to understand the language. I had the language now to actually talk about what it is I was going through. And, you know, I thank God that I have a tribe of people around me, like our good sister Debbie Brown, who, you know, was telling me that, man, you know, therapy's not enough. Like, you got to go out there and actually, like, you know, get to a place of healing, you know. And that's when I was like, well, how do I do that? And so now it's, you know, I have a different set of tools and a different set of resources, whether it's meditation, you know, whether it's, you know, sitting down with my Sacred Purpose coach, Yadi Alba, you know, whether it's, you know, taking my shoes off, walking in the yard, doing grounding, whether it's getting energy work done on myself. It's a lot of different things that I do just to get to that place of healing. So for me, you my journey started actually in that rare moment of peace that I was feeling and wanting to feel that, more often.
I love it. So I'm going to do something, and I'm going to pitch a question to two people at the same time. I'm going to start with you, Ryan. It's the same question, but from a slightly different angle. One of the things Shar talked about is these other ways of healing, right? So there are multiple ways of healing, right? Because I always say there's multiple ways of knowing. And you and I talked recently, I think we did an IG Live together. And one of the things we talked about that I heard you say was about, I'm not going to use the words right, but you said, Alchemy Health doesn't try to be an alternative to therapy. You don't try to take away from therapy. You are an enhancement. So can you talk a little bit about what are some of those tools that Alchemy provides that you feel like can be useful for people who maybe aren't ready to go to therapy, or maybe they're in psychotherapy, but they need, to Shar's point, they need something additional?
Yeah, I could give a quick backstory too, because how I got on this journey. So I played 8 years in NFL, and immediately upon retirement, and it was not like a ceremonial like exit. It was pretty bad, right? So I was physically hurt, but then also emotionally hurt. And as I mentioned in the opening, I didn't know how to identify myself when I wasn't tackling people. And albeit I was out in the world, like I got my MBA while I was an active athlete, took advantage of all these educational programs. Externally, I was going to work, but internally, I was not ready. I was emotionally bankrupt. And so I ran into a ton of anxiety, a ton of depression, just general identity issues. And I've heard this word come up around like cultural competency, right? And I was looking for that when someone said, go see a therapist, right? And we'll get to that in a second. But that's what it was told to me, go see a therapist. And so when I went to see a therapist, they were still talking to me as Ryan Mundy, the athlete. I'm trying to identify and figure myself out as Ryan Mundy, the Black man, the husband, the father. These are dominant parts of my being that I need to uplift now that I'm no longer an athlete. And there was, it was like highly unprofessional. They're talking to me, well, why don't you go back and play football? And you can make this amount of money. I'm like, I'm not here for that right now. It was a really bad experience. But that experience drove me to get to this point. Because again, people kept saying like, go see a therapist. And that sounds like really easy in practice, but it's really, really difficult to do. As I look at like the mental health spectrum, there's like yoga, there's meditation, now there's Instagram memes. And then there's a huge jump that says, go see a therapist. And in between, there's a ton of access barriers. So I was really mindful about like the conception of alchemy and like, how do we bring this thing to market and really uplift our community? The access barrier, starting with cost, like seeing a therapist in person costs at least $100. Dr. Alfie, you told me it's a lot more than that, but I'm being really generous here. But the cost issue is a big time barrier for our general population, but specifically our community as well. Finally, culturally competent providers, like finding a needle in a haystack. There's time constraints, there's geographic constraints. All these things added into a bucket make it really, really hard to quote see a therapist. And so at Alchemy, we think about how do we democratize that access, right? We've created a platform. Right now, we're sitting at about 17 or so clinical professionals, and we work with in a variety of different ways to create efficacious and effective self-care and mental health products. And that shows up in the form of a well-being course, that shows up in the form of like a guided meditation, a sound bath exercise, a breathing exercise. We host group therapy sessions on Instagram Live, really just thinking about how to make a palatable on-ramp into one's mental health journey. And so, like as I told you I think it was 2 weeks ago, I don't look to replace in-person therapy. There's a time and a place for that, for sure. But getting to that point, and this is something that I lived through, is really, really hard to do. And that was like the crystallizing point for me. I've been very blessed and fortunate to have resources, and I still struggle. And so imagine, for what it looks like for the people on the south and west side of Chicago, like who's helping them? How are we democratizing access for them? And so that's like our central theme in Alchemy, is really democratizing access. So like we put all this content, education, tips, tools, and tactics is literally now in your pocket. And so I'm really excited about the opportunity that we have to make an impact.
Beautiful. So Jay and Doug, I would like you all to pick up on that. Jay, can you pick up on this idea for Black men? What Shar talked about was, I don't know, it was powerful and it was very deep. And I got a little teary-eyed. I was trying not to be like dramatic, but it did get me a little teary-eyed. This idea that we have to get to a place as Black people where we can feel peace. And then there's this desire. I want to keep feeling peace. But as all of you have said, there's so much coming at us every day that takes away from our peace, right? I know that there are things that are unique for me as a Black woman, being a mother to a Black son and a wife to a Black husband and a daughter to a Black father and a sister to a Black brother, right? I'm always worrying about somebody because I have anxiety too, and I'm trying not to. So I guess what I'm wondering is, from your perspective, Jay, and then Doug, I want to pitch it to you. When is the time? What is it that you've seen, going back to what Shar said, I'm just mindful of that helps a brother get from, I'm going to try these other things, I'm going to talk to my friends, you know how we do, I'm going to pray, I'm just going to keep praying. There's nothing wrong with that, right? But without works, you got to do both, and just keep it real. So what have you seen that helps brothers move from, I know something's wrong, to let me go talk to Jay when Jay got time, because Jay ain't got no time because his schedule was completely full with all these patients. How do we help brothers move from one to the next? What have you seen?
Well, I'll say this. So I'm the son of a pastor, so I understand the spiritual context of it.
Yeah.
And one of the things I want to educate those that are watching, prayer is just a tool.
Amen.
It's an essential, it's a tool. However, I don't think that it becomes the main proponent that how you process or work through something, because I think even if you go through scriptures, right, when Jesus asked the brother that, he asked him, will thou be made whole? So him asking him that, the brother still had to choose his healing. So healing is a choice. So even from a scriptural context, it's the same works in a clinical setting. But let's go back to sports. And Ryan knows this. Even let's think about this, right? When you think about when we were growing up, we wanted to be like Mike because Mike represented something that we wanted to aspire to. And what I'm learning is the same as that work from sports and having a superhero figure, action figure, whatever that looks like. The same works in the context of how we move and progress, even in thoughts, even how we function as men. And even after the Breakfast Club interview I had brothers that were sending voice messages crying, thanking me for thanking me for bringing language. And what I'm saying is, Michael Jordan doesn't jump from the free throw line if Dr. J doesn't.
Amen.
So it gave him a model. It gave him a picture. Now, he did it in his own way. And that was the reason why I pushed through grad school. I was the only Black male in grad school as a marriage and family therapist. And the reason I pushed is because I remember, just like Ryan, he would tell you there are no Black representation when it comes to the clinical setting. I spoke for the league 3 years ago at their NFL Clinician Summit. And I spoke there as a former player and spoke there as someone who was now a clinician as an intern phase. Out of 32 teams, 25 of the team therapists were white. Now, what can you tell me now about being a Black man with a bunch of money, but still dealing with daddy issues? That's very difficult because yes, I have arrived from the world's view, but internally, as Ryan just said, I'm still this broken little boy that needs some type of validation and healing. The money changed my bank account, but it didn't change the trauma. The success fixed my status, but it didn't fix the memory. So that's why listen to Charlemagne, what he said, his anxiety probably increased even more as he became more successful. Because the more success you attain, the more responsibility, the more eyes are on you, the more pressure. And so there's no one that are talking to Black men as we even begin to be successful in certain spaces. There are no one that is helping it, because let's be honest, success can be traumatizing. Because it not only impacts your bank account, but it impacts your relationships. So what I am seeing is the more that we have spaces like this, I'm working on a project right now, and I'm going to put this out here. My vision has always been is that eventually one day that I am the male version of a Yama. And here's why I say this. And here's why I say this is because as men begin to see other men be open, men begin to see other men be vulnerable. And that vulnerability is not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of strength, because it says that you are aware. And it now gives you the opportunity to be responsive rather than reactionary. And we've learned to be reactionary because trauma rewires the plasticity in your brain.
Yes, sir.
So now either fight or flight, or when you look at a self-sabotaging or imposter syndrome, you freeze, which causes analysis paralysis where you don't know what to do. Your life has changed. And so what I'm saying is that men, and when people say, man, how do you get all these brothers to talk? Man, I work with celebrities, I work with people, men. They say, how do you get, I say, here's the thing that I will tell you that is across the board with men, especially in a locker room. Once you show me your wounds and you normalize that I am like you, I now feel comfortable to take off my cape.
That part.
Right.
That's why I address men as kings, because I'm not a threat to you, my brother. But I see you as I see myself. That's why it was important. I've been on this healing journey almost 10 years at 39. And I'm talking about, I'm a brother that 10 years ago, my godmother found me from a suicide attempt. So when I talk about healing, I know that the journey was necessary, because as you become healed, not only are you seeing and hearing different, you are now living different. And you're not living from a traumatic experience. You're now living from an overcoming experience. And so as we have these platforms, and that's why I'm working hard, because the media controls how Black men see themselves. So when we see men, and again, no shade, we've heard from a lot of women long enough.
Yeah.
So that's why anytime Charlemagne needs me, I'm gonna be here, because it's time that we hear from men. Because brothers are wanting to be brothers. I mean, I'm telling you, literally, I had to shut. My anxiety was so bad after the response from the Breakfast Club. Like, I mean, brothers was just like, man, can I talk to you? Can I see you? And I realized, man, these brothers are not afraid to talk. These brothers just want a trusted space to talk. That if I open up, you're not going to weaponize it. That I'm not going to be emotionally blackmailed. And because it's about how you're going to view me. And as we have more brothers show their vulnerability, because I know what it's like to put that helmet on and you go out there and you a beast, but man, that little boy inside of you, he's scared, because he knows that, man, I can punish everybody out here, but I go home and I have to punish myself with the memories. And what I want brothers to do is to be free from those things.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Doug, I'm going to come to you, and I think we're going to bring Anthony back in. And let me say before, as I pitch it to Doug, and then I'm going to come to you, Anthony, we'll give you the floor. One thing I want to make sure that we highlight is that what you're saying, Jay, is that brothers need a safe space. I think at the same time, we want to make sure that we are creating the kinds of safe spaces that brothers see and know are available to them. And that's the part that I think is difficult and troubling, is that you have even women out here who are trying to create spaces for men, Black men, to be who they are. The challenge is there's not enough promotion. There's not enough knowledge out there. I'm a scientist. There's not enough data, right? So when I hear people start talking about cognitive behavioral therapy and dialectical behavioral therapy and interpersonal therapy, I'm like, where the Black folks at? Did you test this stuff on? Right? And Char knows I'm always saying that. And so until we have enough people who look like you all and who look like me, contributing to the generation of the knowledge that is used to create the interventions to help us, you're going to continue, I'm sorry to get on my soapbox, you're going to continue to have what you saw when you and Ryan were in the league. These teams, and ain't nobody got nobody Black on the team for these brothers to go to. And they're not going to go to people who don't look like them, because they don't perceive that those folks understand their story. Even if they're men, you don't understand what it's like for me to have multi-millions in my bank account, but I'm still scared to death when the cops stop me. Because until he sees that license and know who I am, anything can happen. And even sometimes they get mad because they see who you are, a Ryan or a Jay or a Shar or Anthony or Doug, then they have, because they don't got what you got. So I think that I really want to highlight this point of, we need to make sure that brothers can see and find and locate the spaces where they can be vulnerable. So I just want to put a plug in there for all these folks in the league, all these teams and all these administrators. Y'all need to find some brothers and some sisters, a few sisters, gotta get them in there too, to bring them in, to allow these men to see that there's somebody they can go talk to. So let me go to you, Doug, because I know that that's a big part of what you all do, is create those spaces.
Yeah, y'all preaching now, but I mean,
Jay started it. It's his fault.
yeah, I know. I mean, one thing I go back and I think about that pivotal moment where it actually changed for me. And actually we did it. It's when I stop ignoring the pain. You know, all my traumas and everything that I kept secretly, I stopped ignoring it. And then, like I said, things was a godsend. You know, I get on the Black Men Heal, you know, through a friend, and, you know, hey, you should be on the executive board. I talked to Taz, you know, big shout out to Taz. She's like, bro, we don't have no executive board, not right now. And that was at the beginning of the Breakfast Club, you know, and I said, well, sis, honestly, I need the therapy. You know, let me go through the therapy. And she's a big advocate, as you know, what Jay was talking about. Like, look, we need a face. Like, I'm the founder, but we need a face. You know, do you mind being the face? And you know, like I told you guys before, yeah, I'm free. You know, and what happens is, you know, as we talk about that wellness, like, you know, the 8 dimensions of wellness is like that. That's our balance. You know, that's when I started to learn stuff. You know, when I figured out, you know, based on my financial. My spiritual, my physical, socially, economically. I mean, all those factors that bring that out brought me wellness. And then what happened is when we were at the height of the pandemic, in Black Men Heal, you know about the free therapy, the cultural competency mentioned up, and of course removing the stigma. But we had to come up with an idea because now we were doing things virtually. And we had such a waiting list. And we came up with a thing called King's Corner. Like King's Corner. And what happened is we've been doing it for over 52 weeks, over a year, every week. Now we invited guys into this space, and now we got labels on it because now we got a virtual free space. We're talking about psychoeducation. We're talking about wellness. And we're averaging 25 to 30 guys that come into this space. You know, me and my sidekick, my nephew, me and Reggie, we bring these guys into this space. We come up with the different topics, you know, depression, anxiety. We're talking about 8 dimensions of wellness. We're talking about police brutality. And guys are coming into this space, and yet they're opening up themselves like we couldn't believe. Like, I've shed tears in this space because of being vulnerable and being so proud of these young brothers, old brothers, all these different generations that we have to come into that space and just open up. Just like Jay said, like, we had no idea. And that's why honestly, we going on a tour, 5 cities. Like, who does that? Like, we going on a city, inviting guys in virtually and in person. You know, excuse me for my passion, but because I get excited for this. Like, just like you guys, I know I'm on assignment. I know what you guys are doing and making a difference. So I'm a part of that vision. Only thing that's why I say, yo, let's go, let's do this. Because there's so many Black men out there that's hurting. And now we're talking about kings, but let's not worry about the kings. I mean, let's worry about them, but let's worry about the generations after us, the generations after us, and the generations after us. So if I'm holding the door, now if somebody gave me the door, I want to be able to slide away from the door. Yo, hey, young man, you hold the door. Because there's another generation's coming after that. And when he's done, yo, young man, you hold the door. Because come on, man. Like, these are, like, he knows our path, man. Like, this is what we do. Y'all go ahead, man.
You good, and I love that. Go ahead, Shar. You got something to add? Yeah.
Because I know I'm on assignment. Like my military years, I was on assignment. I learned how to be a leader. Working in the prison, I seen mass incarceration with my own eyes. I wasn't worried about who was coming to jail. I was worried about the overtime I could make. So when I got finished, I said, what can I do? I do some stuff and travel around the country doing prison reform. Now I'm doing Black Men Heal. So now I'm healing our culture. Like, come on. Like, we got to get to a point. We're at a point now. Thank God we went through the pandemic, but now with social media and everything, now everything is coming to a forefront. You guys are doing it now. Jay's doing it. Everybody here now is doing it to a forefront where everybody can see it. Yeah, let's use social media to our advantage. Because all it is, I'm telling you, I go on there, I say, yo, look at me. Look at me, but there's some things I want you to see. There's some things I want you to learn. There's some things, like you talked about, there's some things we need to get training on. So when we do it, and then we do it as a collective unit, come on now. Ain't no stopping us. We all the way up. Like, yo,
I want you to get Anthony involved, Dr. Alfie.
Yes, of course.
To Doug's point, I think last year the pandemic it forced a lot of people to be still.
Yep.
You know what I mean? In the Bible, God said, "Be still and know that I am God." It forced a lot of people to be still, and I had so many brothers, man. Especially rappers reaching out to me last year. Dr. Alfie, I was sending a lot of people her way. Just, they wanted somebody to talk to, and I think now, even out of the pandemic, we saw the brother Meek Mill, tweet out today, we got to make therapy cool in the Black community. It's because, man, it's only but so long you can run from yourself.
Yep.
It's only but so long you can run from yourself. Eventually you're gonna catch up with yourself. It's gonna have that moment where you're gonna have to sit down and really look yourself in the mirror, and you may not like what you see. What do you do then? You got to go get some healing.
Yes. Yes. So Anthony, won't you come on in here? I feel like that's a good segue. You can tell us a little bit about what you've been doing with Taste and what all the brothers were talking about is just what their experiences have been, particularly in the last year. I've heard that come up a lot, and how it's impacted, the events of the world have impacted their own mental health. But tell us a little bit about how you've been coping, and tell us about Taste.
Well, Taste is a foundation that's dear to my heart. Seeing a lot, being involved in a lot, and seeing the need for help in so many places. I feel like Taste take a step to elevate, to bring somebody up to the next level, that they can bring somebody else up to another level. And just to have a place to get resources and to get information and training on how to be better. So that's something that I wanted to do, and I got started. And to be joined here today is a great avenue to just join with some other brothers to make it even bigger. Trauma and mental health, it's something that's so special. It needs to have all the attention, man, because it starts very young. I remember being 5 and 6 years old, dreaming of something so big, but my life at the time was not reflective of what my dreams were. So you become kind of, disconnected from your real world and living in your dream. But then when you wake up and realize that your real life is still there and the things that you encountered are still there, you feel lost. And so not only that, being adopted even made me feel even deeper in a lost place, even deeper. So I had a lot of disconnection from relationships, failed marriage, being a father of six Black men. I wanted to be better. So I'm still in a place now where I'm doing the healing and just being aware and being honest with myself. Like, you have a problem. I think you have a problem with attaching yourself to something that you can't depend on to be consistent. I think once you are adopted or once you go through something in life, you feel like life has let you down. The people that you were supposed to depend on let you down. You become this whole other animal, and you start going through life not living, but just surviving. So mental therapy is definitely so important. And to do it young, I think is very important, to catch the babies before, it seeps in. If we can start to do that, I think would have an advantage to change a lot of what we see now, a lot of broken men and women that we see now.
Anthony. Anthony, you so right, man. Because I didn't start going to therapy till I was like 37, 38 years old. I'm 43 now. But man, it's literally like I went into therapy unpacking 38 years of baggage. But imagine if I would have started early. Like I was one of those kids who got molested when they was 8 years old. What if I would have started when I was 9 or 10 and constantly, been going to therapy, having to unpack 38 years of trauma.
Yeah.
That's why I'm so confused about life right now. Like, because everything I thought I knew, I realized I had to unlearn all of that. So I'm at that point where I'm just like a blank slate. Like, I don't know anything except I want to feel what real healing is.
Yes. Yeah. You just merely surviving, and until you become aware that you're just surviving, you don't know to look for a better way. And we want to catch the babies and help them to, get to a place earlier so they're not surviving for, like you said, for 38 years. Here I am, I'm 50, and there's some things now that, I have to unlearn. And I'm willing to do the work, not just for me, but for the young and just for us as a black family.
Yes. Yes, that's beautiful. So let me ask one question really quickly, Anthony. Was there a moment, I asked Shar this at the beginning, was there a moment that you had this revelation that you needed to do something in terms of founding Taste, or even before you got to creating Taste as an entity?
Mm-hmm.
Was there a moment of clarity that you had where you said, I have to do something different? I want to make things better. You talked about your children. I want to make things better for myself and for the people coming behind me. And if so, are you comfortable sharing that, just that revelation or that moment with us?
Yeah, like he was saying about success, success is just one level of something that you encounter in your life. And it doesn't make everything else better. But it gave me an opportunity to speak louder. There's more speakers and there's more listeners. And I started noticing that, I'm getting all these accolades and people are loving me, but I'm going home and I'm not whole. I'm not whole. I'm needing something else. So, I started searching, okay, look, what is it that I really need? And when you don't know, you don't have access to seeing better. You don't know what to ask for, what to long for. So I started paying attention to all the people who I felt like were living in their purpose and doing what they were doing. Here I am singing, I'm traveling the world, but there's more that I needed to fix what I had been through. So I wanted to do better. And I wanted to do better for my kids, and not just me, but a lot of people are looking at me. And I want to be an example of something that has gone through the work, been honest and vulnerable enough to expose myself. There was a point in my life where, I wasn't living my best, and ended up getting incarcerated. I said I would never get arrested. And at that point, I think that's when I was like, you know what? You got to really start paying attention to doing better, giving better, and expecting better, not just for myself, but from those who are in my space and my family. And so, I did the work, and I started looking and reading books and doing certain things that allow me to think different and desire it. I'm almost at a place to where I can say, all right, I'm getting that much better.
There you go. Oh, I love that. Thank you for being so open and sharing all of that with us. And so I'm mindful of the time. I wish I had you guys for another hour, because there's so much wisdom. There's so many things I've learned. And I have to really say thank you. We're not quite at the end, but I have to say thank you, because there's so much you've shared that I can take back into my relationship with my son. Right. And that, I can pass on to my son. Plus, y'all give me cool points, because I can be like, look who I was on stage with. Right. So thank you for that. But I want to start with you, Ryan. I want to ask each one of you gentlemen the same question. Char, I'm going to save you for last. And I would wonder if you can share with me if there's one takeaway, whether it's from the conversation today or just in general, related to Black men specifically and their mental health. What would that takeaway be? And again, Ryan, I'm going to start with you.
Well, yeah, this was a great and powerful discussion. Thank you again for having me. The one takeaway that I would share with everyone else, and that's constantly on my mind, as particularly we talked about the current state that we're living in, is that we always have to be constantly figuring out how to show up and be our best self, right? We talk about the trials, the tribulations, the strain, the strife. But on the other side of it, I look at my kids, I look at my wife, I look at my employees and the folks who are depending on me. There's an external responsibility that I feel very strongly about that, and I think Anthony mentioned it, around our community and our ecosystem. And as leaders, I feel, again, a really strong responsibility to make sure that I'm doing the work, making sure that I'm taking care of myself, making sure that I'm getting proper rest, making sure that I'm, meditating, yoga, exercising, whatever it is, not only for the best and highest version of myself, but because my family's dependent on me, right? I got 2 young daughters at home that need the best version of me daily, right? Because we all know it's hard out there. And for me not to put in the work, to put in the effort, the time and attention, to be mindful about like who I'm around, what I'm doing, how I'm taking care of myself, and how I'm showing up, on a daily basis is a disservice to them. And so I feel really strongly about that. And it's like it's a net benefit, right? Like by doing these things, I'm showing up as the best and highest version of myself, which is really important to me. But again, I'm showing up as the best and highest version of myself for others around me and those who are depending on me, that love me, that I love, and that I care about. And so it all works together. And that in a very simple way is saying, mind your mental. I got that from a really good friend of mine based here in Chicago, Brandon Bro. But it's a catchy tagline, but it's literally that efficient and simple. Mind your mental. Be mindful of the things that you think about. Be mindful of the things that you consume, both physically and mentally. Be mindful of your surroundings and how they're impacting you. I mean, it all works together. So I would just encourage everyone to mind your mental and just focus on showing up for yourself, because when you show up for yourself, the world gets a best and highest version of you, which is really important.
Thank you so much. Doug, I'm gonna go to you. What's one takeaway you want to share with us from today?
Well, one thing I just want to say is, like, we get to a point where, well, I'll say it like this. Everybody can tell a story, but everybody can't share a story. Like, we get to a point in our lives, whether with ourselves or we seek therapy. So we tell our story. We're able to tell our stories about our pain and what we've been through. But when you're able to share your story, when you're able to come to something like this and share your story about being vulnerable, then we start to heal everyone that's around us. We start to heal our families. We start to heal our communities. And that makes a big difference. That's when the journey really starts, based on everything that we're going through, with the injustices of the world, I would say. So I would want somebody now to really think about how they're going to tell the story. The book is already written. I need you to tell it. I need you to share it. So
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much. Mr. Barnett, I want to go to you. Can you give us one takeaway?
It's one takeaway, and I'm going to pull this from Charlemagne. He said he started therapy at 37, 38. He's now 43. And when you look at that, that tells me that he's been on this journey. And what I want to share, and I share all the time with my clients and when I'm speaking or doing a podcast or interview, is that healing is a journey and wholeness is the destination. The journey is neither straight or short. And everyone's journey to healing is going to be different. And whether you go into therapy, counseling, yoga, or whatever that is, and I want to encourage the brothers, give yourself the opportunity to process. So many of us have gone through life suppressing our emotions, suppressing our feelings, and it's caused a lot of abusive behaviors, a lot of abuse, whether it's abuse that you're carrying out toward others, or abuse that that you're carrying out towards yourself. And I just want to allow guys to look at the men that have been on this platform that's sharing. We're all in a journey, man. This healing thing, like every time you get to a new level in life or a new place in life, it's going to require you to go and address something that may comes up that may be challenging. And therapy is not about discovering what is wrong with you. It's about discovering what went wrong that caused certain behaviors and certain things that are processes and cognitive distortions and all of those different things. But just encourage it, brother, man. It's a journey, and it's one day at a time, man. And focus on what's in front of you rather than what's ahead of you. And if you can do that, I said that's my life hack for anxiety, by focusing on what's in front of you rather than what's ahead of you.
I love it. Thank you so much. So come back I want you to say that one part again. You said something is a journey and something is the destination. And I want to right.
Yes, healing is a journey and wholeness is the destination.
Okay, I'm waiting for my sweatshirt. All right. That is beautiful. All right.
Jay got some fire sweatshirts that say heal. I rock them all the time. The heal.
Oh, yes. All right. Where my sweatshirt at, man? You got to hook a sister up. Come on now.
Yeah, I got you.
All right.
Send me your address.
Let's go. Let's go. All right, my team, y'all heard that. He gonna send me some merch. So I'm gonna get me some merch. And so let me go to you, Mr. Hamilton. What is the takeaway that you have for us today?
You know, I've heard a lot of life and things that happen, and what I want people to know, and myself to know, that none of it is a punishment. Our lives are merely just, like you said, a journey. And the things that have happened to us are just signals and things that make you aware of what's happened to you. It's not a punishment, and for you to not be down on yourself, to look forward to living your best life. You deserve it, and there are people out here who really care for you. And just give yourself an opportunity to see what's on the other side of unhappiness, and live on purpose every day.
Oh my God, I love it. Y'all, everybody's preaching. We got a bunch of PKs up in here. Everybody's preaching. This is beautiful. Like, I feel so, it's not about me, but I feel so full. So I just want to thank each one of you. And then last but not least, I want to go to my friend, Mr. Charlemagne the God. I'm going to ask you two questions, Char. One is, what's one takeaway? And then for anybody who came in late, could you go back to telling us your passion around founding MWA? Because I really want people to hear this, and it'll be a good segue into the closeout. So your takeaway, and what's your passion, and why you founded MWA?
Well, my takeaway, and what I always try to tell people is it's okay to not be okay. It's perfectly okay to not be okay, but it's not okay to not. But it's not okay to not, go get help for not being okay. And I can't speak for everyone else, but I know personally, I can say I was raised right, but I was raised wrong too, because I was raised in an environment where everyone was doing the best they could with the resources they had. But the truth is, those men before me, they were raised wrong too. So we really the first generation that has, the luxury of healing. We have the resources, we have the information, and if you don't have the resources, we have organizations like Black Men Heal. We have organizations like TASTE. We have organizations like the Mental Wealth Alliance. If you don't have the information, you can listen to brothers like Jay Barnett. And I would tell you to tap in with those experts because, I'm not an expert. I'm just a brother living an experience. And if my experiences inspire you to go on your journey of healing, great. And these brothers in this meeting are the experts that you should talk to and listen to.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. So I'm in here giving my finger snaps. I just want to thank all of our guests. I'm going to name all of them so you all don't forget who we got on this beautiful stage. Charlemagne the God, obviously Anthony Hamilton. You can see these just beautiful Black men. I love seeing Black folks shine like this. Like, it's not just shining just because they're famous and cool. It's shining because they're out here doing things to help our community. So you can see all of their organizations. You got King J Barnett. Look, let me tell y'all something. Everybody, if you're not following anybody on here, you need to go follow them right now, because one of the things I always tell people, particularly because I work with young people, is to curate your news, curate your social media feed. And every single one of these organizations that you hear, every one of these people is sharing content that you need to be mindful of, that you want to make sure that you're following. So we got Alchemy Health, right? Get your mind right with these tools and supports that you can have. Obviously, we have the Black Men Heal. We have the TASTE Foundation. And of course, we have King J Barnett, who's out there as a mental health professional specifically. This is what he does. He's trained in it. He's got a degree. And I believe I read is working on that doctorate. So we're going to be Dr. King J Barnett pretty soon. And then, of course, we don't want to forget the Mental Wealth Alliance that helped bring all of this together. I'm going to thank Ann and Hayden and all the folks behind the scenes.
I apologize. I was muted and did not realize it. Listen, I hope that you've enjoyed this as much as I have. Listen, this is what PAYNE in the Pews Mental Health and Ministry is all about, bringing you great content, bringing you great information, resources. Listen, tonight's discussion about men's mental health, so powerful and so necessary. And it doesn't matter your economic status. It doesn't matter your background. It doesn't matter any of the things that we have preconceived notions about, because these men came from the spectrum, right? But they shared from their heart, and they shared some valuable information. And listen, the coming weeks, we've got a lineup of some great guests that are going to be on here live with us. You'll see more like this. I had the opportunity to connect with some amazing people. One of the speakers on tonight made the comment about, it's not that people don't want to talk about mental health, it's that they want a safe space to do it. And I have found that to be 100% accurate. That is 100% on point. And so I thank you guys for joining in, those who are watching live, those who are watching the replay. Listen, we honor you being here. We honor your attentiveness. If you missed any of it, listen, go back and watch the replay, especially for our men, especially our husbands, our brothers, our sons, our cousins, our nephews, our dads. Listen, this is important. It's important. And all the resources, if you missed any of their contact information, how you can connect with them, go back and watch the replay. All the information is right there at the end. So listen, I thank you for joining us on this wonderful PAYNE in the Pews Mental Health and Ministry broadcast. And I will see you guys next week, 7 o'clock p.m. Be blessed.